Hello, I'm Lowell Vanderpool, and this channel is dedicated to IT pros, IT students, technically inclined users, and just the super curious. You can contact me at my email below anytime. It's all the rage now. Software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service. So it's no surprise to see when Microsoft was faced with three major problems that it turned to Windows as a service. In order to make Windows as a service work, Microsoft had to use a complicated and sophisticated technology, and that is called Windows Update System. If you were laughing when I said sophisticated and complex technology in the same breath that I said Windows Update, I get it. But I think you will see as I do this presentation, as we look at the Windows 10 Update System and the role it plays in the Windows as a service, it truly is something we must learn, master, and of course, troubleshoot. Windows 10 Update System is key to the future of Windows. IT professionals have to understand what are the Windows 10 updates, how have they changed, and how do they work now? How are they deployed? How to customize updates and delivery service? And finally, how to troubleshoot the device when they fail. Because the past helps us understand the present, we're going to look at the three major problems facing Microsoft and its customer base, and it will help us to understand the present Microsoft Update System. Microsoft has been making available new versions of Windows every, say, 2 to 5 years. Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 8.1, Windows 10. When Microsoft released new versions of Windows, the consumer had just two options. One was the in-place upgrade, which basically saved your settings, your data, took you from an old version of Windows to the new version of Windows. Then there was another option, a clean install, called bare metal install. And typically you had to clear a weekend, and because it took a weekend to blow away your hard drive, reinstall the operating system, your apps, etc., and get it back up and running. Business and enterprise had a much more complex problem. They had a budget that they had to deal with. What was the time involved? What was the impact on the business? How much additional manpower was going to be required? And of course, the complexity of software. All of these play a role in the decision as to whether to accept the new version or skip. Remember, I've shared with you that there were three major problems that forced Microsoft to consider and move to Windows as a service. Here's major problem number one. Upgrades for business and enterprise were getting so expensive. Companies were having to build huge budgets to train users for the new interface. They were having to hire additional people or temporary people or bring in a third party to manage the rollout. Costs and times for these upgrades were getting out of control. And trust me, Microsoft was getting an earful from their customers. The second major problem that Microsoft was facing was that because businesses and enterprises were skipping these versions, it left Microsoft supporting and patching and updating multiple versions of Windows for years. Their costs were going out of control. The major problem number three was Microsoft's own update strategy. Microsoft has given for years enterprises and businesses the right to pick and choose updates that they want to patch their systems. Corporate IT could choose or skip many of the updates Microsoft created for their operating systems. Let's look at the consequences of this freedom of choice on Microsoft's customers. So this is Microsoft's engineering group, and let's say this is Windows 7. It's now 2 years into production. And what we're looking at in this picture is the code base for Windows 7 2 years down the road. A lot of the code that's in the square, you see in the blue, has been patched, it's been updated, there have been problems, there's been issues, there have been security holes. And Microsoft consistently has patched that code, updated that, and sent that out to all the companies that use Windows 7. The problem is, over here, company ABC has the right not to use those patches, not to apply everything that Microsoft sends. Now, I have a real problem. This code base is not the same as this code base. So when company ABC calls Microsoft Engineering and says, hey, we got a problem, this isn't working, or when Microsoft tries to solve this company's problem, they're dealing with a totally different version of Windows, because half of the fixes, patches, quality updates that company ABC should have, they haven't applied for whatever reason. And so now Microsoft is dealing with a complete different version of Windows than is sitting in their engineering group. This gets worse. Now I have company XYZ. And of course, they received all the patches and updates from Microsoft over the last 2 years, but they did not apply all of them either. And so now they have a different version of Windows. Now they have a different version of Windows than this company, and they definitely have a different version of Windows from Microsoft. Can you see the complex problem that Microsoft's tech support was trying to deal with when every company came to them with legitimate problems, and they were trying to troubleshoot a totally different version of Windows 7? Windows as a Service will allow Microsoft to address all three of these major significant problems. Let's take a look at how it'll address problem number 3, updates. You can see this series of Windows 10 updates, January update, February update, and notice these are cumulative. So when you download February's update, you will get February's updates, patches, as well as January. If you download March, you're going to get March's patches, updates, and February's and January's. These updates will be cumulative, reducing that fragmentation of base images in business and enterprise. Let me show you an example so you'll better understand how it will work. So let's take a look. This is Microsoft's build, and this is their current state. Let's say this is as of March, a Windows 10 version as of March. But over here, we've got abc.com, and they had problems in January. They couldn't bring this update down. They couldn't bring February down because they were struggling with a problem with an application. So they got it fixed. So by the time they're ready to bring March down, because it's a cumulative update, it will bring March, February, and January. And so by the time they get the March update, they will now be in perfect sync with the Microsoft base image. So Microsoft can support them correctly. They're updated and patched. Even if they have to skip a update or two, eventually when they do get their updates down, it will bring them up to the current Microsoft build. Windows as a Service will now address problem number 2, and that is keeping business and enterprise no more than 18 to 30 months behind the latest version of Windows 10, rather than now where we've got businesses 7 years behind the current version. Once these businesses get on the Windows 10 train, then Windows Update will continually come down each month, pushing them forward to each and every new version. So Windows Update will be the key to Windows as a Service. Windows 10 spreads the traditional deployment effort of Windows over smaller continuous updates. With Windows as a Service, there are now 2 fundamental types of updates. Feature updates, which do include new functionality and capability, as well as potential fixes and security updates. We'll get those 2 times a year in March and October. Quality updates are more frequent and mainly include small software fixes and security updates. They will come the second Tuesday of each month, typically known as Patch Tuesday. Windows as a Service now addresses problem number 1, the time and money to move to new versions of Windows. With Windows as a Service now, users will get new features with updates, feature updates, quality updates, and new versions of Windows. But the UI, the user interface, stays very consistent over each Windows 10 version. Very little training for the user. Using complex upgrade software, Microsoft leverages an in-place upgrade to each new version of Windows 10. As Windows 10 rolls out a new version, it uses the in-place upgrade process to automatically install the new version of Windows, preserve all the applications, settings, and user data. Windows 10 will continue to support even older hardware drivers, so it will support Windows 7 drivers, 8, 8.1, and of course all the Windows 10. Microsoft is promising strong application compatibility between one version of Windows 10 and another. This is achieved by minimal changes in the Win32 API. The key to this process is Microsoft being able to produce reliable updates and reliable new versions. So every day engineering starts with builds of the new Microsoft version. It could be updates, it could be feature updates, it could be a new version of Windows. Whatever that build is, it's rolled out to the internal Microsoft system to over 10,000 computers. Once that testing is done and feedback is done, it is then rolled out to over 1 million Microsoft Insider previews. These are users who have signed up to become beta testers. That period of testing goes on for 6 months with over 1 million PCs giving telemetry data back to Microsoft. Once Microsoft feels that that update, that new version, that feature update is ready, it rolls it out to you and I, and it goes to consumer PCs. That's in the hundreds of millions of PCs. And then finally, it is made available to the business side of the house. My overall experience with Windows Update as a Service, I've been pleasantly surprised. I had complex boxes, over 450 enterprise boxes, complex setups, and we went from Windows 10, 15.011, 16.07, all the way to 19.03, and we had very few issues. Let's review what we've covered. Windows as a Service brings solutions to a lot of these major problems. Updates tested on millions of computers, then released to production. Windows 10 interface stays reasonably the same, really reducing that user training. Corporations and business have some version flexibility, but it's limited. In-place upgrade technology provides new versions, clean installs, migration of applications, update drivers, and retaining of user data. Monthly updates are cumulative and variants of code bases are minimal. This is not all set in stone. It probably will change. It will definitely be tweaked. Let's take a look at the Windows 10 update service on the client. I'm going to take my mouse to the far right-hand bottom corner, go to the All Settings, and pop up the Update and Security feature. Here we're at Windows Update. We have the option to check for updates right here. We can pause updates for 7 days. Gives you a chance to hold an update further back in time until you're ready. You can change your active hours, so I only want updates to come down at certain times of the day. You can look at your update history. This pulls up all your feature updates, your quality updates, your Windows Defender virus definition updates. You can come down and take a look. You can see all the virus definitions, and any other special updates will be shown here. These are your malicious software removal toolkits that were updated. You also see that you have the uninstall updates. So if there's a problem with an update, you can select any of the updates that you presently have and uninstall them. You also have advanced options, and you can open this up. Under advanced options, you can receive updates for other Microsoft products when you update Windows, which is probably a good idea. If you have a cellular connection on a tablet, you can decide, no, I don't want my updates coming down on my data line. You can choose to restart this device as soon as an update is put down or not. You can temporarily pause updates from installing on this device for up to 35 days. When you reach that limit, then you have to begin to start the updates. You can also defer an update. Microsoft does allow you to defer a featured update up to 365 days. A quality update can be deferred only up to 30 days. So these are different controls that you can place on your Windows Update system. If you have multiple PCs in your home or business, you can allow multiple PCs to spread that delivery across many devices in your network. So you can actually allow different PCs to download the update and spread that through your local network. You can limit how much bandwidth is used for downloading updates in the background. You can limit how much bandwidth is used for downloading updates in the foreground. So there's a lot of controls on delivery. You also have an activity monitor. It allows you to see where did you get your updates. In my case, I got them from Microsoft. But if you allow delivery optimization and you allow other PCs on your network to download portions of the update, you could get it from other locations than Microsoft. Now remember, monthly updates grow. Those are your quality updates. Remember, they're cumulative, so they are going to get larger as you go down the road. So let's say you start out with a new version of Windows and you're getting your first feature update, say in March. Your update could be somewhere around 100 to 200 megabytes. So that's kind of what you can expect. But as we move to 6 and 8 months down the road, you could see a full update. Let's say you delayed your updates as large as 1 to 1.2 gigabytes. Microsoft says that's about as large as an update will ever get for any version of Windows. Update file size does matter. Obviously, you got network impact and storage impact. When you get a full update, if that is what you get, you will have all the binaries for that update. You can also get a delta update, meaning your initial version plus a delta of what is needed to bring you up to the latest version called VN. Delta update is going to be deprecated. There is also available the Express update. In other words, here Microsoft looks at the files that you have on your PC, compares that to the update, and downloads only the needed files. That can save you 33 to 70%. Keep in mind, if you're delaying your updates, even your Express update will grow in size. The Windows Update client will always try to download Express Update first. Under certain situations, it may fall back to a full file if needed. The Express Update download works as follows. The client initiates an Express download. First, it downloads a stub, which is part of the Express package. The Windows Update client passes the stub to the Windows installer. It uses the stub to do a local inventory of your files, comparing the deltas of the files on your device and what is needed to get you the latest version being offered. The Windows installer then requests the update client to download the ranges that it needs. The client downloads these ranges and passes them on to the Windows installer, which applies the ranges and then determines if there's any additional ranges might be needed. This repeats until the Windows installer tells Windows Update client that all necessary ranges have been downloaded. Lazy automatic corruption repair runs during the update operation to detect corrupted binaries. At the end of the download, if the update fails, the automatic corruption repair starts. The automatic repair system then repairs the files on the corruption list, and the installation of the update will succeed the next attempt. And if all else fails, you get this lovely message. To take a Windows 10 PC with user data, applications, user settings, and to completely upgrade that box to a totally new version, migrate the applications, migrate the user settings, migrate all the user data, and install a clean copy of the new version of Windows, and do that right on over and over. In order for Microsoft to win the hearts and minds of business and enterprise, this method had to be rock solid and reliable. Let's take a look at it. Microsoft's internal IT team was faced with a real dilemma. They were in the middle, halfway through an entire Microsoft organization rollout of Windows 8, and they were directed to begin at the same time a Windows 8.1. They had to come up with a new way of rolling out Windows. The in-place upgrade was born. Microsoft developed special software to perform in-place upgrades. This software is complex. It has to analyze the existing operating system, analyze the hardware drivers for upgrade compatibility. It has to analyze the current applications for migration. It has to save the entire OS, old OS, in case a rollback was required. We've all seen that Windows.old. Save user data and settings, save applications, install a clean operating system, update drivers, applications migrated, user data and settings migrated, new operating system logged on. That's what Windows 10 is built on. Of course, most enterprises are going to use products like SSCM to deploy Windows. That is not going to change. Smaller business might use Microsoft Intune. A lot of companies like third-party vendors. But keep in mind, Microsoft is the IT administrator for up to 300 to 400 million generation consumer PCs. I know what it's like to manage 900 users. I can't imagine a day where I manage 300 to 400 million. This wraps up part 1 for understanding Windows 10 Update and Windows as a Service. We will be now working on part 2, troubleshooting Windows Update. A special thanks to all the people who made and released many of the awesome resources used in this presentation for free. The presentation template by Slide Carnival, photographs by Unsplash, music by Martin Kelm, music by generous musicians on YouTube, resources from Microsoft.com, video footage and loops from many generous authors. Thanks for watching. Any questions? Copies of my research notes and slides are available for the asking. Mr. Vanderpool 901 at gmail.com.